Good evening, listeners, viewers, wherever you are. Welcome to Ashford Garley Live here on Bridge Radio Africa. Volcano Shelton, the co-host with you tonight. We're broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook, uh, where you can catch us. You are wonderful listeners and viewers wherever you are in the world. We want to welcome you. It's 8 p.m. and today is March, I believe 10th. March 10th, and in Liberia, today was a national holiday, Decoration Day. I saw some of the footages and little videos trending on social media, particularly Facebook, where a lot of folks had gone to the cemeteries, to clean up as usual. In Liberia, that's where you can see some of the people you haven't seen. Some of them can be ghosts too, because you're not even sure whether they're alive or they came out of the grave, and you say, "Oh my man, I see you for a long time." Yeah, my man, I remember. But my man, but what were you? Oh my man, all what it were, but it's the fun, is a great opportunity to be in Liberia. I was there this gone March for Decoration Day, but it wasn't that cool because the pandemic has just taken root, and a lot of people were kind of apprehensive. But this year it seemed as though people were well adjusted, and indeed the all turned out. The weather was so good, bright, sunny, and hats off to everyone who went to the cemetery to take care of their loved ones' graves. Now, one of the things that bothers me in Liberia, why do we, as a people, okay, we have communities, what we consider city governments. These city governments, they collect the people money. They have the what they call grave and component of a department within the city government. People will go and pay the money. They'll buy the plot, and those people put the money in their pocket, and they don't even clean the graves. Nobody give a crap. What's wrong with this country? Everything got to be all messed up, So then it takes the people to come from home every year to clean the graves. When you pay money, and so why can't they just create a tax fund where people will pay so that they can hire people to clean the grave during the course of the year, rather than just keep the cemetery as some kind of dump pile where people go poop all in the place. They turn it into ghettos and stuff like that. It's a sad thing. Liberia is a sad, sad story, and this happens every day for everything. But no, listen, we're not here to discredit the country, but we're just talking about the things that are negative, that don't present us to look good. But anyway, we want to say thank you to all of those folks who went out to all of the cemeteries to honor the dead. My mother is already dead. My grandmother, many of my family members couldn't be in Liberia this year, but I'm sure that the family went there to take care of that. But to put that to rest, tonight we're going to have a wonderful discussion. I just want to say welcome to all of you wonderful people out there. Our topic tonight is one of those very important topics, and we thought to talk about this because it is an existential issue in families, in communities, in societies, and it's becoming common nature. And we have someone with the expertise to talk about it, and including one of my very good professional colleagues who is also very versed on the topic tonight as studio guest. So if you're joining us from wherever you are, we want to welcome you, our listeners in Liberia, our viewers and listeners in Africa in general, Asia, Australia, Europe, here in the US. We say welcome, invite a friend. My brother and colleague Ashford always says, grab the popcorn, get something to drink, invite a friend. Don't be selfish. Share this because the discussion tonight will be very, very important. It can help you. It can help your family members. It can help the people you know. So we want to encourage you to encourage more people to come on tonight. Share the link, okay? In the meantime, I want to welcome all of you wonderful people who already logged on. Raymond Clark, Charlene Dunbar, Weirdo, Jack Much, my man, Jack Much. Welcome to the show. Jefferson Zian, T. Dawkins Riches. Are you back in the U.S.? Man, did you leave anything in Liberia for me? Because when you guys go, your footprints left everywhere. So I hope you left something there for me. James Waywell, welcome to the show. Share the link. Again, I want to say thank you to Live FM in Zwedru, Grand County, for carrying our broadcast. currently carrying our broadcast, that of Joy FM 101.5 and Live FM 104.1. These are the radio stations in Liberia that continue to simulcast our broadcast while we come live. And of course, the issue here we're talking about is not just for the diaspora, it's also for Liberia, because in Liberia the illiteracy rate is one of the reasons why something like this continues to happen. So our topic tonight is gender-based violence. Gender-based violence, and it can be all over, from many, many, many trajectories. So I would like to come across a little bit, talk about why, what is gender-based violence, and I know the expert is going to come and expand on it, but just to give you a gist of it, is caption GBV, and it's a violence that is directed at an individual. Now, it doesn't say just women; it says an individual. It can be man or it can be woman, based on his or her biological sex or gender identity. And gender identity disorder is one of the things that can lead to gender-based violence, because somebody say I was born in a woman's skin, but I feel I'm a man, or I'm a man born in a woman born in a man's skin. All of those things can create the convolution around understanding why people try to identify with certain gender, and there's gender and there's sex. So let's get that square out, because sometimes we get confused with the two. So it includes physical, sexual, verbal, emotional, and psychological abuse, threats, coercion, economic or educational deprivation, whether occurring in public or private life. So gender-based violence is directed against a person because of their gender. Both men and women experience gender-based violence, but the majority of victims, again, are women and girls. The majority of victims are women and girls. And there are types of gender-based violence. We have violence against women and girls, and the acronym is VAWG. Violence against the LGBTI people, and that would be the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and the I for something else. I'll find it later on. We have intimate partner violence, the IPV, and we have domestic violence, which is common, very, very common. So I believe our guest tonight will talk more on domestic violence, because it's one of the most common gender-based violence. Then sexual violence and indirect or structural violence. Now, I pretended to be an expert because I just wanted to set the stage. Let me bring in first. I'll bring in my. I'll just call her now the co-host, because she's been trending with me in the last few segments. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Martha Washington. Martha, good evening. I know it takes sacrifice to be here. With a wild afro, you're going back to the days of Diana Ross. I remember the Supreme. That's the Supreme look. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Volcano. As always, it's a pleasure to be on your show, and definitely it's even more rewarding to be here to discuss an issue that is really close to my heart, the issue of women and things affecting women, especially gender-based violence and also sexual and gender-based violence. We know that women are historically um, the most who get these different levels of violence perpetrated against them because of their sex. And so I'm glad to be here today to discuss this in the continuation of International Women's Day, I must say. And then also I'm looking forward to the guest. And she comes from a world of knowledge in the area.
Please don't introduce the guests. I
No,
got.
no, no, I'm not introducing her
I'm
yet.
just teasing.
I'm not
Go ahead.
introducing her. So I'm looking forward to the discussion. Hopefully, it will be a fruitful one, and all of us can share what we know, but then also learn from each other, including the viewing audience as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Our guest tonight is a licensed psychologist, a tenured professor at a local university here in the United States, owner of a small private practice in the Philadelphia area. She is the founder of the Diaspora Women for Change Incorporated, an organization that aims to bring awareness on gender based violence in immigrant communities in the US, but also in Liberia. She organized 3 conferences so far in the US and recently developed a workshop to discuss gender based violence in Liberia. She is a mother of 4 beautiful girls and a wife to a loving husband who is very supportive of her career, and she's also a grandmother to a beautiful or handsome grandson. Ladies and gentlemen, our in studio guest tonight is Dr. Francine Chinoweth Richardson. Welcome to Breach Radio Africa, the Ashford Garden Live Show, here with the co host Volcano Shelton. We are here to discuss this very, very important issue that pervades our communities, our families, our societies, our countries, and our world. Thank you for availing yourself. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It is a pleasure to be here. This is actually my first appearance on this show, and it is such a great honor to be able to speak about women's issues this time of the year, March, where we can celebrate all of the women, Liberian women primarily, but all of the women at large, um, for their contributions that they have made to Liberia and humanity. So thank you for having me.
And listen, this is the best of the place to be because here we enlighten our people. We open their minds. Why it is true that we will talk some politics, but we talk about the issues that are affecting the people. And gender based violence is one of those issues in Liberia. Liberia is a common ground for it. And I will ask you to just talk about it from your lens as a licensed psychologist who holds a doctoral degree. Talk about it a little bit. Just tell us, give us an overview of what gender-based violence is. Even though I did my own little, skit on it, but I'll let you come in, Doc.
Well, I think you and Masa did a great introduction about what it is. It is, like you guys said earlier, it's an act. Any act perpetrated against a person. And I like to break it down into our Liberian language. Any act that is done against another person, and you are very right. It says person, it doesn't say
Only women.
only women. However, rightfully said by both of you, women tend to be mostly victimized by gender-based violence. And so if this act is against their will, okay, it's something that you do to them that they are not consenting to, they are not agreeing to, and it inflicts harm on them. So sometimes when we speak in our Liberian society and as Liberian people, we see harm is when we have blood coming down somebody's body or their skin. But that's not necessarily so. There's also harm that we cannot see, which falls into the emotional and psychological harm. And it happens when we have gender norms in our society. When we say gender norms, we are thinking about a man supposed to play this role, a woman is supposed to play this role, and a boy is supposed to play this role, and a girl is supposed to behave this way. So if you have a society that has this underlying structure of how girls and boys or LGBT identities, people with LGBTI identities are supposed to behave, then we are looking at whenever that role is breached, one will inflict harm on that person. It will perpetrate some kind of act against that person against their will. Another part of this definition of gender-based violence is unequal power relationship. Okay.
Break that down.
Yes. So because in this unequal power relationship sometimes does not talk about just job issues, just money, like maybe I make more money than you. It talks about a relationship between a student and a teacher, the relationship between
a boss and an employee.
Yes. We talk about relationship sometimes between relationships in the home. Boys, what do we assign boys? What role do we buy cars for boys and girls for and dolls for girls, cars for boys. So that's that unequal relationship is very, very important. And that's why when we look at the term, it doesn't quite apply to women, because there are situations in this country, in Liberia, where that unequal relationship can occur between two men. Okay. Or it can occur between two women, by the way. So, having said those, I think those issues, if we can remember inflicting harm, we can remember that there's various forms of violence. And you correctly said there's, which we can explore later on. There's economic violence, there's food violence, there's
Education.
Education, there's digital violence. I can think upon that, where we're taking cell phones from our husband. Revenge porn is a big thing in our culture because we haven't quite gotten used to how to use social media.
And I think, and Doc, let me just add this. This is a very important piece. Social media violence. People
Course.
are not using social media to castigate people and destroy their character. They talk, people using photographs. You have a relationship, intimate affair with a person, and because the relationship didn't go anywhere, you post them on social media, you destroy them.
Yes, that is a form of gender-based violence. Absolutely. I remember a case, and I got involved with this case that happened in Liberia. We call that revenge porn. Basically, it happens here as well. But I don't know if you guys recall, there was a young lady by the name, I think if I remember, her name was Masa. She was a journalist type thing, and she was dating this guy who was a professor or something at the university. He had some role at the university, and they had a misunderstanding in the relationship, and she had sent him some pictures, maybe not in the best form in terms of the picture, and he placed her picture in a chat room. Okay. So we talked about maybe a couple of years ago that happened, and I know this is more prevalent now. We're seeing more and more, as you said, people are misusing social media. I can't tell you some of the things that I see on Facebook that is just to denigrate someone, to inflict harm, psychological harm on someone, and that is a form of sexual and gender-based violence.
And will you say then, in all honesty, since we're on the social media platform, let's talk to Masa and you, but Masa will come in. Do you say that people themselves make themselves susceptible or vulnerable to sexual-based violence or gender-based violence by the kind of way they conduct themselves on social media, what they portray on social media, the things they put on social media? Will you then say that some of those people victimize themselves in reality?
Well, that's a good and interesting question. I think we'll have to sort of go underneath that a little bit more.
And I want you to do that because I've seen that, and I sometimes analyze from my perspective. Wait a minute, I saw you this way. I didn't think that you would do something like this. And people wake up, they're brushing their teeth, they're on social media. They're frying the egg, they're on social media. Everything they're on social media. To the point now they cannot distinguish what's supposed to be on social media and what's supposed to be private.
That's very true. Yes, please come in, Masa.
Can I come in for Canada?
Yeah.
For Canada, as I'm listening to you and the examples you're trying to give, I'm kind of thinking, and I'm a little bit I differ with you a little bit there.
Fair enough.
Because social media is social media. While it is true that we should exercise all necessary caution in engaging social media, but then also let's not forget social media is a right-based process. People have the right to to post what's happening in their life. It's left with them. Some people are private, some people are more public, some people are happy people. Some people will post, like you said, they wake up in the morning and they make a nice cup of tea. They might share, oh, I had a nice cup of Chinese ginseng tea. And other people, may never post something like that. So if someone, for example, dresses, very nicely, people will say provocative, but with me, except the person really goes to the extent to defy all norms of,
and that's where I was going, because content.
But just hold on 1 minute. I haven't seen, again, it's subjective, but I haven't seen a picture where, like for example, the example Francine gave, I haven't seen a situation where a woman goes on Facebook and say, this is my butt naked picture. I'm having sex with a man.
It's
So,
happening, Masa. You may not have seen it. It's happening. I'm
yeah,
telling
but the
you.
thing is, so, but let's not, when we're talking about sexual based violence, especially against women who are more susceptible to those kinds of behavior from people perpetrating it against them, most of the time it comes from men. Okay, so let's be careful how we just throw out generalization, because it's almost like saying, you know what, I raped a woman or I raped a young girl because she had on a mini skirt, or I raped a woman because she had on a tank, she didn't have on bra and she looked too sexy and I could see her nipples through her blouse. No, it's rape. No, you have no right. You have no right. So we must be very careful, to draw the line. We must be very careful how we think that it's easy to violate other people just because, quote unquote, you think they deserve it, or
Or the presentation.
their presentation. We have no right. For example, I have no right to try to sexually engage the son, the friend of my 18-year-old son, because he comes to my house with his muscle t-shirt, he got his six-pack, he looks great, or he came from playing tennis and he has on shorts. And then I'm at my age in my 50s, and then I go after this kid. And then, I would justify it in my sick head and say, what? Oh, but he looked really hot. Oh, he 18, he's a man. So let's be careful how we try to justify, abuse, especially against women, because people can find all sort of crazy, freak reasons why they think they should be abusing a woman.
And it was not
Very careful
in
there.
the context of trying to create a scenario where I'm saying that people can be victimized by their own action and being the women, but also I was playing the devil advocate so that you, our guest, can clarify, and you've done that. So, Dr.
Yeah,
Francine,
because
do
in,
you
in
want to
any
add?
situation, I just, I'm victim oriented. I try to, as a woman, I've worked in the field of women advocacy for a long time, fighting against all sort of discrimination, all sort of abuses and violence against women. I just don't see myself in the frame of mind where I'm going to blame any woman who was, God forbid, sexually abused or so. You know, I just don't see it, because at that point in time, it's just, when it comes to the nitty gritty, it's just simple humanity that sets in. Okay, you will not
Thank you.
easily what you will not easily do to a male, you can easily do to a woman, because you think she's a woman, quote unquote, she's a weaker sex. We have to guard against that.
Thank you, Doc.
Yeah, I actually agree with. There's an echo when I speak.
Do you have a monitor on in the background?
No,
Okay, go ahead.
that was much better. Okay, yeah, I was just gonna say I have to agree with Masa
And disagree with me?
and disagree with you, Fokano, on this, because the whole thing about it's almost like victimizing the victim all over again.
Okay.
And the thing about it, and I mean, when I say I have to go underneath that. So a lot of times when people are victimized, there's certain protective factors that they demonstrate. There's certain things that they do. Okay. And so we have to be very careful in how we understand what they do. But just because, again, like somebody posting their body, they have the right to do that. In fact, that moves us into some of the human rights definition of sexual-based violence. I like to use an acronym, what that is called PANEL. P stands for participation. Everyone, the UN, which Liberia is a signatory to, says that everyone has the right to participate in decisions that affect their lives. Okay? So you can't tell someone, don't make a cup of tea and put it on Facebook, or don't dress this way. That's that person's right to do that. Okay? So we'll just start with the act, the ability to be able to participate. When we start telling people they can't do this and can't do that, then we're going back into that gender norm that I talked about earlier. We are having expectations. You're a boy, you're a girl, you're this, you fit into this category, you have to do this thing. All right. Like on the other hand, the perpetrator, which is the other person that we can talk about, the person who will kind of advance the act towards another person, we describe them generally as the perpetrator. If I sent you a prior picture of myself and I assume that we're in a relationship, what right do you have to pass that picture or put that in a Facebook chat room or in a messenger chat room? Okay.
No
Uh,
right.
yes.
No
So
right.
you are actually perpetrating an act against my own will. When I send a private picture of myself to somebody that I'm deeply involved with, or even or somebody that I just had a one night stand with, okay, you need to have my consent to do that, just like I need to have your consent to do that. And in our culture, and not only isolated to Liberia, sometimes that line is very, very blur for us. For whatever reason, and we'll get into those reasons that it's just sometimes we see it as I'm going to just share this woman's body look well, so let me share with the boys. It's a boys thing to do, or this man's body look well. Let me share with the girls. It's a girls thing to do. Okay, so we got that boundary and that line very blur for multiple reasons. How did we get this far in a community, in a country? That's something that we'll have to discuss, and I'll be quiet for now so others can contribute as well.
Thank you so much. If you're just joining us, this is Ashford Garley live here on Bridge Radio Africa. Co-host Volcano Shelton is engaging two very, very strong women tonight. I don't know how much I got to fight in me, but I will do my best. Massa Washington and Dr. Francine Chenoweth Richardson. We're having a discussion on gender-based violence. We talked about, why it is true that a woman has the right or a man has the right to portray himself as he pleases. It is his right. That doesn't give anyone the authorization to sexually attack or molest them. They have the right to, and it must be consenting. Any relationship has to be of a consent in nature. And that's why in America here, if a person is non-consenting and you go after them, you're going to go to jail and you're going to die in jail. So it's just something that people need to know here, especially our listeners, viewers, wherever you are. We'll come to the Liberian segment part. But before we do that, I received an SOS call today from an affiliate of Bridge Radio Africa, and Ashford had given the go ahead for us to do something here that we often do when there is a community issue involving or regarding one of our own. Lately, from what I gather, a young lady, I believe by the age of 27 years old, who had resettled in Italy with her husband, took ill, and she was that sick that the husband had to resign his work just to take care of her. And unfortunately, she fought her battle and she passed. The hospital in Italy now is not trying to release her body. They say that they need the bills to be paid. From what I hear, we need to raise money as a platform, as Liberians here in the diaspora, to help get this lady body released from the hospital and probably returned to Liberia. I have one of the ladies who has taken, the initiative to help out in this process. She's backstage in studio. She will come on. I will probe her a little bit to give a quick summary of the situation, and we'll go from there. Ladies, you could even chime in because this is a woman's issue. So Dr. Francine and Massa, I'm bringing in I call her our third guest, Hawa Yomi Moore. Hawa, good evening. Welcome to Bridge Radio Africa, Ashford Garley Live. I've given a synopsis of what it is, but tell us in detail what you know about this story and how you got involved and what it is that Bridge Radio needs to do tonight to help this family and this uh, fallen Liberian mother, sister, cousin, niece, aunt, whatever. We can hear you.
I'm sorry.
Good.
Good evening, Mr. Shelton. Good evening, Sis Francis. Good evening, Sis Massa. I want to say thank you so much for giving me the privilege to be on here. Yesterday, when I was on Facebook, kind of scrolling through Facebook, I saw this sister of us from Liberia going live, and when I tuned into the live, I heard this story about this little sister of us that she passed in Italy, and the body is being withheld, and they cannot give the body to the husband because he owing the amount of $4,000. So I was like, can I have the Cash App number? She said, oh my God, sis, Hawa, I've been looking for you. And I'm glad that you are on here. We don't have a Cash App number. And please, I want to get in touch with you. And I'm like, okay, when you're done with the live, I want you to please inbox me and let I move on there. So after her live, she got to me and we talked, and I provided a Cash App number. So she explained the story to me. This man, his name is Leo Dolo, and the wife name is Peace Dolo. The two of them been in Italy for 9 years. They got married and they were living there for that long. But the wife fell sick. The husband was working and he lost his job. Um, he was just with his wife in the hospital and has no means to turn and help his wife. Unfortunately for him, he lost his wife. So it been so devastating and he didn't know where to turn. According to him, I spoke with him from Italy today, that he went to the embassy, the Liberian embassy in Italy, to ask them for help. That the people said if they don't receive their money, they're going to cremate his wife Bali. So he begged the embassy to please come to his aid. And the embassy, the Liberian embassy in Italy, said they didn't have money to help. They are so sorry. So that's where we are today. So I told her, okay, no problem. I do have a platform, but what I'm going to do, I will try my best to see how I can come on live and ask our people, because this is so sad, you know. And her full name on Facebook is Evangelist Peace Dolo. For those of us that watching, if you want to go and check, this was a beautiful sister who didn't play with her God business. And when you watch her video, tears won't still in your eyes. So I went live yesterday. We were able to raise the amount of 1,000 yesterday. And so we left with 3,000. So I'm just asking the audience, wherever you are, I don't know Peace, but because she's from Liberia, we are all sisters. I don't know her husband, but because he's from Liberia, I consider him my brother. So that's why I'm into this. The lady that reached out to me from Germany, I'm sorry, after 2 a.m., she wished that she could have been here, but it's very late. So she said she's going to follow us. And the husband too, we spoke with him. He was happy to be a part because he haven't been, it wasn't easy to get him, but he said it's not easy for him. So he wish he could be a part two of this. But I'm glad they're following the life. So I'm just asking us Liberians to please see how we can help that sis Peace will have a befitting burial. Right now, her body is in the mortuary, and the husband cannot take it from there because he still got the $4,000 to give to them before he take the body from there. So this is where we are, family. I'm asking us to please come to his aid. Yeah, I'm begging us.
I have a question, Howard.
Yeah.
You said you spoke to the husband, right?
Yes, today.
To the husband, and he gave you first-hand information as to what is going on. That is, he confirmed and authenticated the story.
Yes.
Okay. My second question is, you said the husband said he needs $4,000 at least to settle the hospital and get his wife out.
Yes.
What's about the burial? How is he going to bury her? Because when he gets her out, he still has to bury her, and it still requires funding. Is he also looking? I'm just asking the question so that people understand the gravity of it. So that because you said they need 4,000, and as
right.
I'm thinking, okay, so if the public raises the 4,000 and you get it, they get the body out of the hospital, then what next?
I know.
An estimate as to how much the entire thing will cost, including the hospital fees and also what he might need to bury his wife, finally?
Not really, but when I spoke to him today, it was just that amount they told me about. So they have some, like they got the Liberian community in Italy. There are not many, but they themselves they are trying to see how much they can put together. I think when I spoke with one of the leaders there, he said they're about, I think, 40 person, and they just went there on resettlement. Most of them in school, and because of the COVID-19, it's not easy. So they just begging, like, you know. So he I think his main priority is to get his wife out So they can't cremate because they gave him a time frame that if he don't get the body from this day to the end of this week properly, they're going to burn the body. So I think he just want to get his wet body out, and then from there, I think I don't know. I only know about the
And I
from
think,
the
Master,
week.
you're right to ask the question. But
Mhm.
probably if he removes her from the hospital morgue and take her to a funeral home, maybe then there can be another way to go from there. I think how people panic right away when you hear that we're gonna cremate your wife. I
Yeah.
think his first thought is let's get her out of there first and then get with a funeral home and go from there. But if that be the case, I want to, encourage all of you viewing tonight. We are Do Thomas Awaji. I'm going to call you guys' name tonight. Whatever you can contribute. I'm posting the Cash App number right now. The Cash App number, um, the Cash App number is 240-421-7453. I'm putting it on the banner. Please look up there. That's 240-421-7453. Again, we need to raise $3,000. Um, and this is for a worthy cause. Now if you want to check it up, like she said, go on Facebook and see the verity of the story, because
Mhm.
sometimes people get apprehensive when stuff like this. They're not sure whether it's trick or whatever. But go on Facebook, put in Evangeline Peace Dolo,
Yeah.
and you will be able to find some of the information regarding this. T. Dawkins Richards, I know you just came from Liberia, you spent everything, but still check in the little hole and find something and contribute to this worthy cause. Vida Duner, Ford Morrison, Alfred Tamba. Now I'm calling your name because it's commercial. Just calling your name alone make you need to commit something. Don Gerald Newman,
Thomas
Fit
Awaji.
People More, Jack Merch, my man, Emmanuel Jackson, you got to come through tonight for this young woman. James Wewa, Asi Liberia, Jay Holder Noah, Frederick Fumba Kamara, Kai Jebel, Victoria Moyala, and Jefferson Zane or Zine. We are Doe, Charlene Dunbar, Raymond S. Clark. Please, 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 whatever you can contribute, go to the Cash App 240-421-7453. Just put that Bridge Radio contribution so we know what we're able to do together. Please, please, let's do something for this lady. Hawa, again, thank you for the initiative. That's applaudable. A lot of people will just look at that face, what you call it, that feed, live feed, and just go on. But again, we should be our brothers and sisters keepers. It's tough times. I know what it is. If this is indeed true, this husband is in real dire need. And if the first part of this process is to get his wife from the mortuary before she's cremated, then that's what we need to do. So again, let's contribute. Behind the scene, I will go and put something in there. Jolly Clinton, please contribute. What are we contributing for? You're asking a question. You just got on. Okay, we have a sister who passed. A sister who passed in Italy. She was young, she was sick, and she died. The husband does not have any money because he lost his job trying to take care of her. Right now, her body is in the mortuary at the hospital, and they're threatening to cremate her body. They need to raise. He needs to pay $4,000 through the lady here tonight, Hawa Yomi Moore, who you see on the show. She's raised $1,000, and we need $3,000 more. So whatever you can contribute, we appreciate it. Number is 240. The Cash App number is 240-421-7453. All right. So look on the banner, is right there. So folks, thank you so much for your contribution. I'm sure Hawa, I will get in touch with Letty and you to find out if any contribution was made. All right.
Okay.
So we'll let you go. Thank you so much for the initiative. We appreciate you, and God bless you.
All right. I want to say thank you to Sis Letty too for bringing me for on this platform. I want to say thank you to every one of you. God bless you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks for the initiative. We appreciate it. We'll follow up with you. All right, panel. I think it's a worth the cause.
Yes.
Yeah, things happen. But Doc, let me come back to you. You have done 3 workshops here in the U.S. regarding sexual-based violence, and I think they were probably tailored to the immigrant community. Let's talk about that first before we talk about your workshop, your planned workshop for Liberia.
So when we think about this workshop or what I did here, the goal was to bring awareness. And so, the conversation was very similar to what we're discussing now. What is gender-based violence? Because a lot of times, the culture that we are from and the way that we grew up, sometimes women and men do not realize that they are perpetrating violence against a person against their will. Something happened here.
Nothing happened. I'm bringing you to the forefront. You
Oh,
not
okay. I'm sorry. Okay, good. So, I didn't know that was going to happen. Okay. So a lot of times, so we spent a lot of times in the past 3 conferences just bringing awareness, letting women know that this can happen in immigrant communities, that just because we cross the Atlantic Ocean, it doesn't mean that all of our issues regarding gender norms and unequal power relationships have all of a sudden disappeared because we are in a new country. We tend to bring that with us when we traveled from Liberia to here or wherever we find ourselves. And so I also like to we talked about the different forms of violence, but I like to be more specific, just give specific examples of what they are. Because, when we talk about physical violence, we talk about when a man hits, and I'm just using male and female relationship example, but when a man hits a woman, that's physical violence. Okay. When he smashes something in front of her, that borderlines physical and emotional violence. When you pull somebody's hair, when you choke someone, I'm just giving some plain examples, things that tend to happen in our culture quite regularly. Men tend to beat women. It's not uncommon. I heard that a lot. I was in Liberia in January to do this workshop. That was one of the things that happened between boys and girlfriend and boyfriend and husband and wives. Is the physical violence. That's the emotional part, telling her.
And just to pause you there, when I was growing up, we heard story and it's common in Liberia where they say the man beat a woman, they ain't love the woman.
Yes, that is.
I'm sure I know Masa gonna say something again, but listen, those were true stories growing up. Say your husband or your boyfriend beat you, then he love you.
No, that is very trending. Actually, that's a research that was done within the last, I want to say 5 or 6 years, where they asked elementary, junior high school boys about their relationship with, and this was in Liberia. So again, when they go by what the research that was done by NGO, and they asked them about, relationships and sexual and gender-based violence. And one of the things that they tested out was, the concept of, if a man does not beat me, that means that he doesn't love me. And I think there was close to 30 or 40% of the participants in that study agreed to that. So that is scary in a way. And this is still happening. So we consider that to be physical violence because it leaves a scar on you, and it leaves an emotional scar on you and physical scar on you. And then we talk about the denial of resources when we talk about that unequal power relationship. If you're going to tell a girl that I cannot give you an A in this class, which is very prevalent again in our culture, or I cannot promote you. I heard this story a lot when I was back home. And I also hear that here. I will tell you how I hear it here in my work and in my personal and professional experience. In Liberia, we hear that, oh, I'm not going to give you an A in this class because you're not sleeping with me, or because you're not going to stay after school to be with me. That's denial of resources. You are depriving a woman, a girl, or a boy education because that person is not meeting your needs, and in that unequal power relationship in this country. I've heard a man's going to say, well, I'm not going to give you access to our bank account, or I'm going to take your cell phone away from you. Okay, that's another denial of resources, access to services. That's a form of violence. That's violating someone. And of course, we heard about the sexual violence that can occur. Rape is the second highest crime in Liberia in today's 2021. Okay, it's reportedly been coming up as the second highest crime in Liberia. And so that suggests to us that women and young girls are being violated. And of course, we can talk about emotional psychological, which is basically an area of my interest because I look at the trauma piece, which we'll talk about. But again, I'll be quiet because I'm sure Masa has a lot of wealth of experience into this that she can also sort of collaborate or corroborate on some of my stories.
So,
Wow. Okay. So Dr. Richardson touched on a very important piece of it when she talked about the culture of, even though she didn't say it the way I'm going to say it, but she talked about the culture of acceptance. It's like normalizing, she did say that, normalizing the behavior, the negative behavior, or the woman is raped, is supposed to be, it's not a big deal because it's part of our culture, like she was saying. That stereotype that is damaging to the health of women. If the husband doesn't beat you up, then he doesn't love you. I've just pulled up, let me just pull it up quickly. There's an international NGO in Liberia that did a study. They did a study on sexual and gender-based violence. And it's very interesting to hear from women themselves who are, by and large, the major victims of sexual and gender-based violence. Here, okay, so here, okay, so this group is called, okay, so this group is called the Social Institute and Gender Index. And this is a 2020 study. So it's current, that's why I pulled it up. Mm-hmm. Here they're saying the population of women amongst women themselves who think that domestic violence against women is not a big deal, it's acceptable, is 43%. Okay, so even amongst women ourselves, we don't think that the man abusing his wife, whatever form of gender-based violence he's engaging in, we don't think it's a problem. And so because of these community stereotypes, this is why most times gender-based violence, especially domestic violence against women, are often underreported because one, women feel ashamed because they don't feel supported, because even amongst ourselves, we don't support each other when you hear this thing happened to women, or maybe the man beat the woman, or if the woman alleged that she was sexually harassed, sexually abused or raped by her husband, don't we sit down and make a beer tip or joke of it? Man, let her move from here. She American woman or wife. Oh, your own husband raping you, and we don't understand that because of sexual violence against women has been so prevalent, and because there's so many different layers and forms of sexual violence, that you might be sitting at the table at that very moment with a woman who has experienced one of the other form of sexual-based violence, and she's sitting here and she's listening to this conversation. Do you think she's going to report it? Do you think she's going to feel comfortable to go to Dr. Richardson, or to come to Massa Washington, or to go to the Ministry of Gender and say, hey, this man sexually abused me. He didn't stop there, but he abused my 8-year-old daughter as well. Mm-hmm. She doesn't think she will get redress. And then for the fact that Liberia is so interesting, our country is very interesting. Liberia is a country that is internationally, we cooperate with the international community. We have signed and ratified almost every important international instrument. in human rights, including for everything. Liberia has signed and ratified just about all international human rights and protocol protecting the rights of women. But we are very poor when it comes to implementation. And even when our feet is held to the fire to start the framework and the process for implementation, we never end anything. We may go to a workshop, we may sit down and develop a framework, and then after that, nothing happens. So because we come from a society that doesn't follow through with laws, we don't respect laws. Unfortunately, Liberia is a country that does not respect laws. We got all sort of blackbuster laws on the books, but we don't implement them. This is why our country is suffering. For example,
Yes.
Liberia has ratified the Maputo Protocol. Is the protocol in the Africa Charter of Rights for Women that was designed and created by the African Union. So even in the entire Africa itself is saying, no, we must specifically pay attention to the rights of women, including in some of the focus of that particular Maputo chapter protocol is that traditional practices that tend to impede women and abuse their rights and issues like, female genital mutilation, and those kinds of things, property rights, ownership to property and all of that. Liberia is a signatory to, Liberia has ratified that. But what's happening with us? What's happening with women in Liberia? Zero. Talk, and everything and more talk. So we need to be more, be more forthcoming in terms of actual implementation of our laws and international law. Liberia is an internationally abiding country. We work in the international community. We are a friendly country internationally. We are peaceful internationally. But what we do is we are not peaceful to ourselves. We don't respect our own laws. We sign protocols. We ratify laws. We don't respect them. As soon as we come back home, it's business as usual. That is a challenge for us. And those of us who call ourselves educated people and who call ourselves human rights advocates and women rights advocates, that is one piece of the issue that we really need to focus on: implementation. Because if all of these laws are not implemented, it's focused for nothing.
But you talked about Liberia being an inviting, country. I would think that they are a participating country. They only participate in these things to be in the limelight. But when it comes to the internal affairs of the country, the people who are in power, they tend to usurp every opportunity to make sure that things don't happen. To keep the country, bring the kinds of justice to those people who continue to perpetrate heinous crimes within the context of gender-based violence. But listen, one of the viewers here tonight asked a very important question, and it's going to come to you, Dr. Francine. The viewer asks, he said, how are gender-based violence addressed in Liberia? So what research have you done? Now I see you putting a workshop together. Will this workshop address some of those issues? The writer is Thomas Awaji. He's also asking, what is the purpose of the gender ministry? What are they doing about the issue? So the workshop you're putting together, have you met with or contacted Piso Sadie Tar, who is the gender minister? Are you guys working together to make sure that the government provides the support to you? You're bringing the experts in. You're going to be doing training of gender employees so that they be able to work within the context of what the workshop going to teach and train people to be able to handle this issue.
Yes. Well, let me actually backtrack a little bit. I'm going to get to the question. I want to just kind of support what Masa is saying, and it kind of ties into the question that you asked me. Masa says 42% of the women who in that research study said that gender violence is okay. They sort of normalize it. Okay. And so to me, this is a problem. And this is what makes this issue everybody's problem. Because if I have a woman who is being abused, who has been violated, but she doesn't know, okay? she is not seeing how she's impacted psychologically and how she's impacting future generation psychologically, and how is she impacting her ability to contribute to the society. So this is a problem. This is why gender-based violence is not just a woman's thing. It is everybody's business. It is all systems business. Now, to answer the question about, see, Liberia is such an interesting country. If I went to Liberia and I'm doing something for the welfare, everybody's business, they attach politics to it. Okay, this is not a political issue. So just because maybe I'm this person and I don't have to hook up with the in person or whatever, then the support goes somewhere else. Okay. So everybody sort of work in these niches, these little networks of people, and Pisota and the president, when they're having their own agenda-based meeting, all their people go to it. When another group, ANC, PCQ, RST having their group go to it. So we are not seeing this as a collective effort. So this is our problem. So what I did when I was there were people people from different sectors. We had police officer, we had nursing students, we had business people, we had market women. There people from different sectors were invited to this conference. And when they came to the conference, we just did a 4-day, 8 to 4 o'clock conference on discussion on gender-based violence and how they experience it in their environment. And the goal was for them to take the information that they learned into their different communities in order for all of us to be aware and to prevent this. A last thing I'm going to add on, when Masa spoke about us being a signatory to human rights laws, and we are very good at it, okay? The human rights laws call for, again, participation. Everyone has the right to participate in decisions that affect their lives. You cannot say because she's a woman, I'm going to be her husband and I'm going to tell her how to cook, how to dress, how to walk, what time she's supposed to be on the phone, what kind of food she's supposed to cook for me. If she doesn't cook this food for me, I'm going to beat her. You cannot do that. We have accountability. The law that the law that we sign on speaks about our government being accountable to the citizens of the country, be it a man or a woman, okay? It is the government's responsibility to make sure that all citizens are protected in a way that they are not going to experience gender-based violence and manifest it to the next generation. This is trauma. Trauma works like that, all right? They have the ability to not be discriminated, okay? Well, you can't protect certain people in the society. Like, you can't protect a perpetrator because we don't have a DNA machine. You can't protect a perpetrator because we don't have a machine to decipher whether a sperm exists in the woman's underclothes or not. Whose fault is that? It is not the citizen's fault. That's the government or the agency responsibility. We have the right to empower. So that 42% participants that were in that study, it is our duty to empower them, to teach them, to say, listen, whether we put billboards around, whether we put ads in the paper, in the newspaper, whether we put jingles when we have in the county meets that talk about the wrongness of gender-based violence, that's what we have to do, because that's the only way that 42% would be empowered. When you stay in a situation for a long time, it becomes a normal thing. You can ask for Kenna, if in your household, until you left your household, you probably knew what was in your house is what was practiced around the world until you went out there and said, no, it's not. Everybody don't do this. All right. And I'm just saying, just little example, like in my household, we ate certain food on Sundays. And I just thought everybody ate that food on Sunday until I left my house. And I realized people don't all eat the same food we eat on Sunday. Some people eat different things. And as an adult, it was hard to break that pattern, but I eat what I want to eat on Sunday now. When I'm cooking, I'm still saying, I never grew up eating, this type of food on Sunday. So I'm just trying to make a point. And lastly, our government has legal obligations to respect human rights, as Masa has said, enforcing the law, which is our greatest problem in our country. So in short, that's the answer to the question.
Thank you, Dr. Francine Richardson, Massa Washington, Volcano Shelton, co-host of the Ashford Garden Live show here on Bridge Radio Africa via YouTube and Facebook. This evening, we're discussing gender-based violence. We're looking at the immigrant communities here in the U.S., but particularly Liberia, where it is a serious, serious issue, and we have a full ministry titled Gender Ministry, and yet these things are happening and people are passing around like it's business as usual. We have the laws on the book, but still we don't implement those laws. We are participating in all of the different accords and uh, regulatory procedures and policies delivered through the United Nations, the African Union, and yet we don't do that. We'll open the lines now. A caller is calling from a 7817 number. The caller is calling from a 7817 number. Caller, are you there? What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Joel Bemba, and I'm calling from New Jersey.
Welcome to the program. We have Dr. Francine and Massa Washington. Are you intending to ask a question, make a comment? What it is? You have a minute.
Just make a comment. So I want to appreciate all of them for this particular topic. I think it's one of the things that really interests me. And I see the whole issue of the gender-based violence as a real emergency. And sometimes Liberians see development as just this physical infrastructure. But one of the things that we really need to focus on is this whole social emotional development by addressing these kind of injustices. And I have a legal background. I'm a Liberian lawyer, and I think one of the commenters she make a very good point here. And that is the whole court system, the justice system. There's this huge weakness in how these things are addressed. And so it becomes like, all right, there is no system to address it. So, for example, she make a practical example of how it has become normalized. Because a lot of the people who are being vulnerable to these injustices, they have nowhere to go and redress. So let me give you a practical example. Last year, those of you who followed the case, there's a little girl who was raped. She was taken to the police station and was raped by the police officer. So that's a practical example. Now, it just tells you.
Hold on, let me understand it. The girl was raped by a perpetrator. Then the policeman also follow up and rape the girl.
Yeah, and rape the girl and rape the same thing. It was on the news. I followed that case, and up to now I've not heard how far that has gone. But the bottom line is we need to really address this problem because there's so much abuse that is going on in Liberia. In the family value system, there's a huge decline. Children are neglected. People don't take care of their responsibility because that's where it began from. We have a serious family value crisis. So you have women and young girls growing up in these families, growing up in these relationships, either due to economic reasons, they get so impoverished, and people have taken advantage and continue to abuse people over and over. So we need to focus on how first the justice system needs to really work. It's not really working. Only invested a lot. I remember when I was back at Ministry of Health, we set up this psychosexual gender-based violence. UN gave some money at the time. The late so rest in peace, Jonah Boakai, he was the director at the time. We set up these different structures and training around the country. That I believe is no longer existing or has died. So we really need to come together as a country. All the political thought, all the other things, rape and sexual gender-based violence is one of the major issues that is facing Liberia development. And I think there should be a national emergency. We need to invest more resources in there. And those your guests that are there, I pray that God can strengthen them. We can all work together and see how we can have a real attention on this thing. But I want to believe it is a real nightmare for the country. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was a very sound way to put it tonight. If you're just joining us, we're on Ashford Garley Live here on Bridge Radio Africa via Facebook and YouTube. Our broadcast can be heard on 105.3 Top FM in Zwedru, Grand Juda County. That is in Liberia, West Africa. Joy FM also in Liberia, 101.5. And Live FM 104.1. The program comes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 a.m. GMT. That is the people in the Greenwich Meridian Time Zone, London, and some countries in Africa. Again, I have Dr. Francine Chinaweth Richardson. She's a licensed psychologist who lives here in the U.S., has a private practice, and I'm sure her practice kind of deal with issues like this. Massa Washington, a Liberian journalist, former TRC, Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner, from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Liberia. We're discussing gender-based violence here, and a lot of folks are concerned about what is Liberia doing. Because of course, while we're talking about these things here in the US, you know that in America, there are more actions taken. In Liberia, it is the opposite, Dr. Francine. And I know of a situation where hypothetically my child gets raped. I go to the police, they collect the perpetrator, then they say I gotta feed the perpetrator while he's in jail. All right, because you put him in jail, you gotta feed him. In fact, you gotta pay our way so we can go to the court. Then when you go to the court, you gotta pay the way to get to the court. You gotta pay the witnesses' way. What type of country is this? What type of country is this? Somebody rapes my child. I am distressed. I am in a pathetic situation, but I should come out of my pocket to sponsor this man in jail, because that's what I call it, sponsorship. Why is this man not going on a potato green garden farm on a high labor, growing rice and stuff to feed the prison? But I should feed him while he sits in jail and play checker or play cards or gamble. What people you're talking about this, man? What kind of country is this?
Um, so I will come to that, but there was just some points that I need to make, and I would like to also make a short point addressing the question from Mr. Thomas Hawaji. He asked, "What is the gender ministry doing? Why do we have the gender ministry?" And Francine did a fantastic job, discussing what is going on over there. But I would like to say that, and like I said before, Liberia is good for making laws, for creating projects, and whatsoever, but we fall short when it comes to the actual implementation and seeing things through. The gender ministry has all sort of projects they have. The gender ministry even have a safe house for women who, who are domestic, who suffer domestic abuse and who suffer sexual abuse and who are threatened. The gender ministry actually have safe houses. The ministry has programs, psychosocial programs for, victims. And the president, George Weah, last year actually established an interministerial task force to address the issue of sexual and gender-based violence. And the Ministry of Gender heads that task force. And they came up with a anti-sexual and gender-based violence roadmap 2020 to 2022. So they've targeted the 3 years basically to to work on this action or plan and put into place all these action steps that will actually curtail, if not completely, or stop or prevent these kinds of sexual and gender-based violence against women. So yes, all these things are supposed to be taking place. And then also, Francine, you probably, it's just happened this week. So you've been busy, you teaching and stuff. So it just happened this week. President, we actually yesterday unveiled the first DNA machine. So Liberia now has a DNA machine unveiled yesterday by the President of the Republic of Liberia. So the DNA machine now will help a lot in the investigation of alleged rapists, and also to sort of confirm who the perpetrator is. So that is a huge step. And so we're making progress there. And then also he, I think was last year also, he appropriated between $2 to $16 million to female farmers to assist them, because we need to understand that there's a very thin line between the abuse of women and poverty. The abuse of most of the time, I'm not saying that women like us who are affluent do not suffer abuse. We also do suffer abuse, but sometimes the kind of abuse we suffer and the level of abuse we suffer is completely different from other females, like, who do not have maybe our level of independence, or who do not have the ability to take care of themselves. Like, for example, women up country, a woman who may have 8 children by a man or whatsoever, she's not educated. Yes, she's a farmer, but she doesn't handle her own finances. That woman is poor, and she's kind of thinking, oh, this man is abusing me domestically. Where am I going with my 8 children? Who's going to pick me up? Where's the social network or safety network for me? So when we discuss this issue, we should also try to understand the unique, sad situation with which our women live. And our own cultural practices and stuff tend to impede, women coming out to speak out and to actually advocate for themselves. And then we normalize it. How many government officials sleeping with people, little girls, daughters all over the place? How many of them, they have their wives, they go to church on Sunday with their wives and their children. And then, excuse me, guys, we're going to keep it real here, but they're messing with people's kids. Younger than their daughters.
Yes.
When people see it, the pastor sees it. The pastor knows. Sometimes these children are right in the church with them.
The pastor sometimes participates.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is we need to completely work to destroy this big man in Africa syndrome. And the big man could be the pastor in the church. He could be a minister in government. He could be the guy around the corner store who owns the only convenience store in the area. So, he can give food to little girls, say, come from some bread and stuff. We need to work together as a society. We need to come back to that old African tradition and way of that says it takes a village to raise a child. Where everybody is concerned. We need to do that to protect our young people. And this thing I'm very big on, women also serving as checkpoints. One of your guests on Monday, Koto spoke of checkpoint. Her book, Inappropriate Medley, she has a poem that speaks of checkpoint. It's actually called Checkpoint something. And she's talked about checkpoint. And I would like to say that, the checkpoints she was talking about, like she said, they're not only physical checkpoints, but they're also psychological and mental checkpoints. And all sort of things serve as checkpoint against women. Women ourselves serve as checkpoints against other women. A man may be abusing a woman, violating a woman's rights, and then another woman is defending the man. He may abandon his family. A man may walk out on his wife after 25 years, after she has had all the children for him. Her breast is no longer standing up. She's got some wrinkles, she got some dimples in her thighs. He no longer finds her attractive, and he can just pick up his bag and walk out. Or he can say to her, you know what? I don't want you to leave this house. He can put her out. And then some women will actually justify, oh, but you know what? The man's still young. The man got to live his life. She got her children. Her children will take care of her. Reality. Women also serve as checkpoints against other women. And we need to address all of these things. All of us are responsible. All of us need to pay attention, and all of us need to play our part. Let me tell you something. Not except I know the woman is not doing the right thing, then I may call her in the corner and try to give her some counsel. But if a man is abusing a woman and I know them, and that matter comes to me, I'm taking a stand. I'm supporting that woman. If this man is my brother, I love you very much, but I'm going to tell you what you're doing is wrong. And if you insist you want to go that way, it's on you. You're not getting my support. It cannot be checkpoints for other women. Women cannot be the barriers for other women. Okay? We need to stand together, to work together, because men don't understand this most of the time. Men sometimes don't even understand they're abusing your rights. Sometimes they don't understand they're abusing your right. Imagine in this country, I know of a situation in this country where the man wants to give his wife $50 every 2 weeks for food. And they have 3 children. I'm turning the scenario around because I don't want people business out in the street. They have 3 children. When he takes pay every 2 weeks, he gave it $150 for food. What are you talking about? And these children are minor children going to school. They need lunch, they need breakfast, they need snacks, they need dinner, and all of that. Really? That's a form of abuse. So it means that this poor woman is working double. She's working all the time. She's tired. She's working all the time. Okay? Oh, come on. We have to eliminate all forms of checkpoints against women, including some of us who are right checkpoints.
Yes. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Masa, thank you so much. Let me just remind people here, we also are soliciting the contribution of our viewers and listeners tonight. If you look on the banner under our uh, photographs, if we want to call it, or our images, not photographs, but images, we have a number for um, a cash app for 240-421-7453 to donate to a worthy cause. A young lady by the name of Evangeline Pisdolo passed in an Italian hospital in Italy. Her husband had quitted his job or resigned his job just to take care of his wife, and she finally passed. She's currently in the mortuary of the hospital, but the hospital is claiming not to release the body, with the potential to cremate the body, and the man is needing help. And Hawa Yomi had come on earlier to discuss this situation, and she's taking the initiative to help out Hawa Yomi more. And so we're asking you, our viewers tonight, whatever you can contribute. The Cash App number is there, 240-421-7453. Make your contribution. We also want you to call in and speak with Dr. Francine and Masa on this topic, gender-based violence. The number to call is 404-272-2808. Again, 404-272-2808. I believe this topic is as important as it is. The last caller talked about it being a pandemic. I would put it that way. It is a pandemic, and this pandemic has been going on for such a long time. And I am a victim of this pandemic because I came through what I would consider, I don't know if my situation would be considered sexual based violence, but it was not in the construct of violence, but it was what we would consider as what is that? Statutory rape. All right. A man going out with a girl who is below age, right? Statutory rape. And that was what it was considered back then in Liberia, back in the day. But again, he walked away scot free. I'm here today. But you know, if I had the power to persecute him for bringing me through the form of statutory rape, I would have done so. So Dr. Francine, why is this topic so dear to your heart? Why did you choose to be so involved with this? Is this any personal experience, whether it's family related, or anything? But just before I come to you with that question, there's a caller. We want to give our callers the opportunity. The caller is calling from a 3389 number, 3389. Caller, where you calling from? What's your name?
Yes, Emmanuel Jackson calling from Boston, Massachusetts.
Good evening, Emmanuel. Welcome. You're following the topic. What is your contribution?
And I just feel my heart is heavy. But one of the things that we need to take into consideration to address some of these issues is funding. And with the kind of massive corruption we see across the government, it is very difficult to initiate programs to halt the psychological, sociological, and physiological stresses that the whole society faces due to these gender abuses that we see across the board. So I'd like to know if Dr. Francine and Martha can give us some ways in which going forward we can really get funding for these programs and have the right qualified people. Because another thing that happened to our country, I see, just imagine after April 12, 1980, well, though we killed some of the people, but the high Liberian educational class that we have, people who graduated from CWA and these top schools or shelter, most of these people today, they are not even participating in the government. I mean, the whole structure of society was just subverted to a lower class of people. I'm not saying one, I mean lower people who don't have the kind of temperament and ability to address these issues. So going forward, how can we start now? Because this is a serious setback for our country. Our country look like it's going back into the Stone Age. So how can we really address these issues? I would like for them to speak to that.
Thank you. Hold your thought, Doc and Masa. And you're right because what it is trending in Liberia is our time. We gotta eat. You know, this is our time. So if you're not with the CDC, you're not getting no job here. That's why you had all these misfits all in government, and they're not doing anything but getting rich. Let's come to call up Moses Sandy, a career social worker. You're on the line. What's your contribution? Please lower your monitor. I'm getting feedback, Moses.
Okay. Mr. Sheldon, are you there?
Yeah, we're here. You're sounding good now. I have two important studio guests, Dr. Francine Richardson and Masa Washington.
Yeah. First of all, let me say to you, Bukenda, for the opportunity to be a part of this discussion, and let me also extend my greetings to my own sister, Masa Washington, and Dr. Richardson. I followed the discussion from the onset up to now, and it's very, very interesting. You guys are discussing a very, you know, critical situation like this. You know, when we talk about gender issues, we talk about the abuse of our sisters, something like this. There are a number of things that, stands out. Number one is the level of destitution in our country. I say this because most men would take advantage of women in Liberia. They do so because of economics.
And
Take for
Moses, let me
example,
just add, it's
yes.
not just women now. I was in a conversation, a classified conversation today prior to the show, and I
Hmm.
talked to a gentleman who just came
Hmm.
from Liberia, and we're talking about, this topic. And I said, coming on tonight, this is the topic. He said, but this is not all about women. The young boys now in Liberia are being molested by government officials. It is now in many of the ministries and places for young boys to get a job in the country. You got to sell yourself. This is serious stuff, Moses. So let us not just talk about women now. It's across the board.
Yeah, I agree, and like I was saying, the lack of opportunities, the high level of poverty in the country. So those who have limited opportunities or those who have the opportunity, they take advantage of the disadvantage. If you went to the villages, if you went to rural like the public official, you can have any female, you can have anybody, for little or nothing. In fact, a dad may even encourage his 10-year-old or 12-year-old, 13-year-old to sleep with an older man because you see the individual as a source of income. So even those who are being abused, they themselves don't even know that they are being abused. So to fight this problem, education is critical. Helping our people sustain themselves economically is another key way of addressing this problem. Then another thing is culture. I'm sure Masa and Dr. Richardson will agree with me. In our cultural setting, some of our sisters, don't even know that they are being abused. In fact, when any of them is being abused, when someone talk about it, they say, "Oh well, this is a family matter." Now she's trying to put our business, out there to the public, or this man is trying to expose our family secret. Everything is considered, a family affair. The family able, or those who are abusing their relatives, their sisters, their moms, and the problem just go on. So our women advocates really need to take on the role of creating more awareness. I think we need more awareness at all levels of our society. in the cities, in rural Liberias. We need more education. We need to create radio programs that will educate these people about their basic rights and also help them acquire education, employment opportunities, and help them engage in activities that will upgrade their living standard. Other than that, we can have all these radio broadcasts, all these advocacy, but that's not going to cut it. That's just my candid opinion on this subject matter.
Thank you, Moses. Thank you for calling and contributing. Listen, this is a serious problem, and we all know it here tonight, Masa, you and Dr. Francine. He talked about some of the radio productions that should be tailored towards something like this, but instead, everybody talking politics. They're talking about CCP, they're talking about CDC, they're talking about UP, they're talking about what the other one in Liberty Party. Now there's a new one called what People Liberation Party. Dr. Daniel Cassell is going around and campaigning. But that's all Liberia is about: the political season. Rather than look at the issues in the country that erode in the country's fabric, they don't bother with it. So I ask you the question regarding why this topic is so dear to your heart.
Well, you just allow me to reflect on why I think that is so dear to my heart. You kind of took me to a place that I never really, maybe I think it will be one of the very first time that I'm verbalizing this. I grew up until I was, my teenage years before I migrated to this country. And as a child in Liberia, I recalled, I experienced where I believe I was 13 at the time, and there was a teacher who
and 13 is the magic number. My mother was 13 years old when she had me. That's what I'm talking about here. 13 is the magic number. I always hear the number 13. I'm telling you, Doc. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
I was about to leave the country. I was about to leave the country. And so this teacher knew, and I used to play basketball. So, everybody knew I was leaving the country, getting ready to come to the States. And in my young mind, I saw, and I'll try to make this quick. Like I said, I'm just processing and articulating in mind because I really wanted to go to what some of the caller points that he made. So, in my young mind, and I just have a teacher relationship. I play basketball and stuff like that. So I was asked to come to the teacher's residence, which was not uncommon. A lot of us used to go there to study. And so I think when I got there, people who know me close might know the story. The teacher asked me, "Do you know why you're here?" And I was like, "Well, you like a father figure to me. We come here to do math." And he said, "No, I know you'll be traveling soon, but I wanted to tell you something before you leave." And I was like, "What?" In my young mind, again, going back. And so the teacher asked me to close my eyes. And I did. And so, frighteningly, I was very afraid, but naive at the same time. The teacher walked me to the bathroom. And in the bathroom, there was a mirror. And I kept, there's mirrors in most bathrooms. And he kept on saying, "There's a person that I'm in love with, and I want you to know this." And in myself, I'm like, "What I got to do with this cruel person like you being in love with somebody?" And he said, "Open your eyes." And I opened my eyes, and I'm sitting and I'm in a mirror, and it's me. And I can tell you now what I felt then, and it's been quite some years now. And I don't usually talk about it. There's only people that are really close to me because, I want to protect people's identity at this point. I felt very violated. I felt like this is nasty. I'm a child. You are somebody that I respect. And honestly, I stopped talking for a long time. I never told my parents. I never told anyone. And I happened to just like get me out of here. Luckily, nothing happened to me, but it could have been worse. But the sense of the idea, and I held there for years. And as an adult, when I left the country, I had a conversation with this person, and I explained to them, what I thought you did was very wrong. And they said, oh, that happens in Liberia all the time.
Mm.
You know,
Just play it off.
yes, play it off. And I just stopped speaking to this person. So I can tell you, and that's actually maybe this is unconsciously what has led me to advocate for this population. I don't know. I can't pinpoint when. Actually, I know when. I don't know if you heard about the Regina story. The Regina story. Regina is a 13-year-old girl that was
Again, the magic number. This 13 number. I'm gonna listen. I have a 7-year-old. I'm gonna around when she 12 and ready to turn 13. I'm gonna put my hand around her and shoot her because it seems like though it is the magic number.
You onto something because, of course, around 11 back in the days. Now girls develop early, but back in the days, 12, 13, 11 was when we had our secondary sexual characteristic development. Wow. But now, of course, girls are getting the more we eat hormones.
Way more mature.
Yes, now. So that you onto something up, but that's a little different in Liberia because I see some 13-year-old girls that can't fit the size. But Regina, actually, this is when I actually founded Diaspora Women for Change. Regina was a 13-year-old girl in Liberia who got violated and pregnant by someone she was living with. She considered to be her father. I'm not going to call names because I don't want to brand one particular group because people tend to misinterpret this story. Up to today's date, Regina got pregnant for this big shot in the country. They took Regina and sent her back to the interior, what we call the interior. Regina had the baby. She had fistula. I don't know if fistula is when you are urinating and defecating at the same time. This is one harmful physical effect of when a woman gets, or when a young girl gets violated. Okay, you defecating is a very nasty disease. You can't even, not disease, harm to your body. You can't even possibly have children because she a 13-year-old. She can't bear that weight of carrying that baby and all of the punishment of her body, and not having proper care. So up to today's date, we don't know where Regina is. She vanished from the earth. And in Liberia, one of the few places in the world that this can happen where we had no track of her. So that's when I strongly got involved, short of the story that I just shared earlier. But I want to go back and I'll be quick with what the caller talked about. He talked about funding. Liberia gets a lot of funding. We get funding from USAID. We get funding from the European community. They're very helpful. We get funding from the UN to carry out all of the tasks that we need. If only we could spend the money appropriately. Okay. The next thing your caller talked about was that the competency of the people that we put into these positions, and he's very right. This is a very complex and serious pandemic. We need a task force. You know how we are now dealing with the pandemic? You see our leader constantly in this modern world, this part of the world, constantly on TV. Anytime you turn the news around, they're talking about, COVID. This is a model that we can use in our country. All right. He talked that we do not follow through. Massa has said this all the time. We don't follow through. I gave you an example, in a training, I talked about the Tobias Bowen case. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
Yep.
Tobias abused his daughter in Europe.
Yeah, in the Netherlands.
Yes, left Europe.
Went to Rochester, New York.
Yes. And was given a position at Redemption Hospital. Nobody checked him. We allowed him to go free. He ended up abusing another child before he was taken into custody. All right. But he was free to be in the environment. And so when Massa talked about, or when they talk about no follow through, this is a complex task. You have to be able to say, if we do A, we have a safe house. This is what the safe house is going to look like. This is what happens when you come here. This is how we're going to use the DNA machine. This is how we're going to maintain. I mean, every step of the way, if you have one crack through the system, the legal case gets thrown out. So I want to also address that in Liberia, we hear a lot about the civil case. It's okay. And I said this when I did the presentation. Family can come and say, oh, I want to take this case out of court. I beg you, and all of those things. And I'm using my Liberian parlance here for people to get me real good. But we forget to know there's a criminal case. There's a criminal aspect to abusing people. And nobody can go beg the government to take the case from the hand when you violated the law. It shouldn't be that way. Family can choose to say, okay, this is a civil matter. We will not press charges. In other parts of the world, like developed country, you can do that all you want, but there's a criminal case because the criminal laws protect the society at large. Okay, so this is a complex issue that we need to deal with. And lastly, there's a long-term effect of all of this. This is why Liberia is the way that it is. When someone is violated, there's a trauma that comes with it if you don't work that out. And the only short dynamic I can speak about is what we call the fight, flight, and freeze in our world way of responding. So you can constantly, with the flight is you constantly have this type of anxiety, our inability to think through things. You see our legislature, and I'm not blaming or labeling the legislature. See how they discuss issues. It suggests like people are having some uneasy anxiety, like the flight of ideas are just coming through. We're not following.
Like they got mental health.
Oh, something to that. I can't label anybody here, but you know what I'm saying? Okay. And then the freeze is when you are depressed, your inability to act. We are in a state in our country where somebody said it looks like incompetency, but there could be underlying things like we just don't know what to do. Why is it that we get a DNA machine? Why we don't follow through with how is this thing supposed to be maintained? Because these things are very important. We need the DNA to give us law to go to court. I tell you about the Odell Sherman case. I was involved in that. That whole case was dropped because we sent a pathologist from the United States here. Massa was a great contributor to that as well. And you know his feedback to me? He said, I'm so sorry. I can go and do the best pathologist job, but I need things to support the legal part. I need to see if there was cement. We need to send a kid out to see if there's a cement in her private area. We don't have that machine to determine if there was a foreign, we call it a foreign part. Okay. I need the police to be able to give me a detail. The police is not equipped to go and see when somebody fell or if the descent from height, which is what the ruling was. What caused the descent from height? Look at the structure. You do an analysis. You mark buildings. You cover the evidence. You protect it. We're not equipped to do that. And this is what people who are thinking clearly, people who don't have this fight freeze tendency, this is kind of what they can do. Unfortunately, that's the society that we find ourselves in.
Wow. You know, and again, we've running out of time, but this topic is so, important to our destiny as a country. And for over 174 years since we've gained our independence, we've continued to deal with this. And why it is true that we continue to give excuses is not helping. And like you talked about, the government does receive a lot of money towards these things because this country is very much against these things. And when they see the frequency of how they occur in third world countries, and especially America and Liberia, that bilateral relationship has been since its formation, they're ready to put support. But where is all of the support going? People are pocketing it or they're mismanaging it, because I know of true stories where if the money comes for the gender ministry for the purpose of gender-based violence, they take it and shove it to some other, project, or we want to let's fix the road, or let put street light up, or let's do this, and then those other things don't get taken care of. And when they can't get proper accountability for where the money was used and how it was used, it just create donor fatigue, and these people then just turn their back, and then what happens? It becomes a vicious circle. The situation continues to evolve, it continues to revolve, and we get nowhere. But Masa, you've covered a lot of important issues in Liberia. Is there any one particular instance you can remember regarding the gender-based violence topic we're talking here tonight that you've covered as a journalist?
I mean, absolutely. I have visual pictures in my head of women who suffer sexual gender-based violence, especially during the war when I served as a journalist, and then to come back on the TRC and then relive all of those stories as women came and retold their stories all over again. Let me just read this quickly here. This is the TRC report on gender. This is the TRC report on women. The TRC has 6 volumes report. We have the main volume report, and then we have different specialized reports. And this is the report on gender on women. So let me just read something from here quickly. This is from one of the women who testified at the TRC. This is not confidential. That's why I can read it here. So she is saying, the rebel captured me from my village when they attacked, and I was his woman. I had my child. First, it was hard. I used to want to kill myself and the baby, but later I got used to the baby. I love my baby now, and I want him to be with me. I am missing him and crying every day. Declared a former sex slave whose baby was abducted from her by the rebel father at the end of the war in 2003. So you see what we're talking about here, Dr. Richardson and I, about violence against women. So during the war, she was taken forcibly against her will as a sex slave with the rebels. They were passing her around. She had a baby for one of them. And of course, she was not free to maybe flee, go back to her family or whatsoever. She was there with them. She stayed with them. She had a baby. And you see here, she described the intense, immense trauma that this ordeal that she went through. Imagine giving birth to your rapist child. You are now the mother of this child who's been fathered by this guy who violated your human rights, who raped you. Okay, and no rape is decent. No rape is decent. And so even after he raped her and she had a child and she was forced to remain there against her will, she went through all this trauma of psychologically rejecting the child. And then she came back, that motherly instinct came, I guess, and she started loving her child. And probably she was hoping for a better life. At the end of the war, after the war was ended, after they disarmed them, guess what? He stole her baby, her child from her. And today her child is missing. She can't find the child. And so she came to the TRC with a broken heart. So he's abused her all over again. So he treated her like she was nothing. He raped her. She had a child against her will. She became attached to her child. And then at the end of the war, he punished her some more by taking her child away from her. So she came to the TRC with that very painful, sorrowful story. This is just one out of thousands and thousands and thousands of stories that happened to women. There was another woman who came and testified publicly at the pavilion. She was raped. Every single warring faction that passed through her town, she was raped by one or two of the rebel fighters, because she came from a town where she was like at a contested place. It was around the airfield. So the airfield is strategic for any war, anything. Unfortunately, her town was there. Every time that airfield changed hand to the other warring faction, she was raped. And these women are living with these things. Nothing has happened. The Liberian people refuse to implement the TRC report. They make politics out of it. But the TRC report is not only about prosecutions. It's not only about the recommendations for war crimes. It's also about these kinds of recommendations. Mm-hmm. The recommendations for women, for justice for women. we have recommendations for reparation for women. And one of the form of reparation will be to help this woman and people like her, to help unify her with her child, to help trace her child so that she can get her child back. And these are some of the things, recommendations that we have in the TRC report, and the entire country is closing their eyes. They live for the perpetrators. They see them every day. They vote for the perpetrators to be their leaders. The perpetrators are sitting in the Senate. They're sitting in the legislature. They have been appointed in the judiciary. They have been appointed in the executive branch of government. And the Liberian people live with it. They have accepted it. But then they have all this tolerance for this level of nonsense, this perpetrator, but then you know what? They don't have any tolerance for Master Washington, who only got a big mouth innocently, who is only making noise all the time. Let's implement the report. Let's bring justice to our people. No, they don't have tolerance for me. They will curse you out on Facebook. They will try to do a lie on you. They try to defame you. They try to disgrace you. They try to imagine up. They try to malign you, and also they will curse you out of Volcano Shelton, and they will curse other advocates. But then they are comfortable with the people who open the pregnant women's stomach, the people who rape their mothers and stuff. It is called Stockholm Syndrome. Francine knows it probably better than me because she's a professor. She's teaching Stockholm Syndrome, where people are attached to their victimizer. But the government, as custodian of the state, has the ultimate responsibility to correct these things and also to protect its people. In this country, when the social worker or when the school counselor or even a neighbor suspect that a child is abused or that a woman is being abused, they don't leave it to the family. They go ahead and report it. They pick up the phone and call 911 and say, hey, I'm suspecting abuse of a child, a woman, or even a man, or even a boy. Guess what? Immediately, the entire system comes together to work to protect that person, but not only to protect the person who is abused, but also to penalize the abuser, depending on what the law says for the different levels of abuse. So, but in Liberia, they leave it to the family. Like in the case of this girl, I think it was Regina. So this guy who was honorable in the legislature, okay, it was his brother's daughter he was raising. It happens all the time. Right now in Philadelphia here, I have my nephew with me. I lost my brother, so I've been raising his son since 2 years old. His father passed away when he was 2 years old. I've been raising the kid. He's now 18. He's my son, okay? So imagine, we raise each other children all the time. We raise our nieces, nephew all the time. So he was entrusted to help the brother who was up in the interior, help take care of his daughter and take care of his child, because you know what? He has the opportunity. He has the upper hand. He's a legislator. He's educated. What did he do? Abuse this child, and she got pregnant. And when the cat was let out of the bag, and everybody, there was this huge hue and cry about it. What happened? Family came in and they got upset. The mother and the rest of them were cussing advocates, cussing other people. So what? That her uncle. In fact, he didn't do anything. So what? Next thing you know, he paid the people, their family money, and they took the child out of like one time I heard she was in Guinea, then we heard she was in the Ivory Coast or whatsoever. But these kinds of cases should not be left with the family to decide. It should be left with the country and the laws of the land.
Yes.
In the case of Regina and every other young girl who was raped,
yes,
whether they were raped by their own father or by their own mother, guess what? Immediately a crime takes place, it is out of the hands of the individual or the institution or whatsoever. Guess what? It becomes a federal, it becomes a national issue. The government steps in, and the government must apply the laws that are on the books to protect these victims. You cannot, you know what? They get own mind. The mother cannot go to police station and lobby the police director or pay, people there to drop the case. No. Guess what? If anything, if I was president of Liberia or if I was justice minister or the police director, I would arrest her. She would be arrested and prosecuted.
For aiding and abetting.
For aiding and abetting and for fraud. You understand? Liberia, we must be serious about our country. Somebody just posted former Liberia ambassador to the United States, I think, Ambassador Richard Dix, I think is her. I'm thinking it's her. So she just posted that, she just said that we should all try to work together, and so that the government can make the teaching and education of sexual and gender-based violence as part of our national curriculum.
Yes.
I think that process they've been discussing, I think is they started the process already, but I don't know how far they're going with it. But Madam Ambassador, that's a very good suggestion, and that is something that we all should really pay attention to, and we can all work towards that, because like Dr. Richardson said, our people are very ignorant. Sometimes they don't even understand that they've been abused. Sometimes the woman doesn't even understand she's been abused by her husband or even her son, who she raised, but who is not a man in the home. And so, he can abuse his mom. He can tell his mom, say, you know what, I can take my power house from you, go and marry a new husband and get your own house. So
thank you, Martha. Thank you. So we're wrapping up now. We've crossed our finish line, but this topic is so critical and important. So I'll give you the opportunity on a meeting, Dr. Richardson, to just give us your closing statement regarding gender-based violence and what you hope to see for Liberia and the diaspora. Because again, we're in the diaspora. It doesn't negate the fact that being in the diaspora, those things are not happening. So what is your hope for a better future for Liberia regarding gender-based violence?
I like to close by saying that sexual and gender-based violence is everyone's business. It's not just Masa business. It's not your business, for Kenna. It's not just your audience business. It is all of us business. And awareness. If we can only bring education to people, whether they're in Liberia or in the United States, because like I said, not because we crossed the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, means that you have left your psychology, your mindset back in that country. You bring that with you. I see that all the time as a practicing psychologist. I see people come into my office and they're having these traumatic symptoms right in front of me because of what they have experienced. So yes, we need to educate our people. It needs to be a systemic education, not just, we're going to put a safe house here, or we're going to throw money at this. We have to follow through. If it's the law, follow through from A to B. Let's brainstorm. We sit down in a group and duke it out. Is this what we want? We have a DNA machine. Where is this machine going to be? Who's going to be responsible? How are we going to maintain it? What does it take to maintain it? Where's the money going to come from? Who's going to use it? Where's the database that we're going to keep the information? All these minor steps are those are steps that we need to take. Likewise, with the same education, what happens when a girl is raped in Liberia? What do? We don't have a 911. We don't have a hotline unlike other countries. Who do you call? What happens if you call someone? Nothing systemic. So my final word is education, and it's everybody's business.
Thank you. Masa, quick, a minute.
Yeah. So for me, I do agree with Francine. Very salient points, my friend. But also, I like results, and I don't mind dealing with the tough issues. Liberians, we must be honest about these things that are happening right on our noses, right to our country and to our country, our fellow women, and we must be serious about Liberia. We must be serious about building the kind of world-class country that we want. The reason I say this is because Francine mentioned this guy who just Horace is no, not Horace.
Tobias.
She just mentioned Tobias. Okay, he was given this big job after this alleged
hospital
of all of that. But then we know very well it is possible that some people didn't know, because some of us didn't know. But guess what? Don't be surprised if some of the people who recommended him job actually heard about this or about this, but they didn't care, because that is a society where every perpetrator have their fan club, every perpetrator have their supporters. All the people who perpetrate crime against everybody else, whether it's sexual gender-based violence, whether it's gross human rights violation, whether it's murder or whatsoever, they all have people who support them. Mind you, and those people who support them are in our category. Some of them are like people like us. People will actually sit down on these forums and discuss this kind of issue so passionately. But by the time you go and speak about an issue and mention one perpetrator, they come on your page to cuss you out or they send you an inbox. So until Liberians can get away from that situation where we are so polarized on the basis of ethnicity or friendship and family, we are not going anywhere. We need to be honest and sincere and deal with it. Whether this person is from your tribe or not, he killed people, he raped people, he hurt people. The law must be applied to him. He must be prosecuted. He must not. Anybody who has an allegation of sexual and gender-based violence, rape, and murder, allegation should never, their name should never go forward for public office until they are investigated, until they clear. Now, more or less, somebody who everybody knows kill people and stuff, and then in public office. So until we Liberians in our category, until we are serious to address this, we're going to continue to have problems because we are inconsistent, we are not honest, and we're not ready. For me, that's what it is. We need to be honest about these things. We need to be consistent, and we need to get away from the tribalism and sectionalism and supporting your friends and family when they do wrong. There were people who knew that Tobias was a sexual violator. They knew that, but they still put him through the crack and they still gave him the job. There were people who knew.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies, man, listen, this was a wonderful discussion. I've seen a lot of people writing here tonight. I want to thank you, Dr. Francine Chenoweth Richardson, for sharing with us your experience, your education here tonight. We hope that we can come back sometime in the future to follow up with your work regarding what you're doing to help Liberia and here in the immigrant community here in the diaspora. Again, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It was a wonderful discussion. Go rest yourself. Go take care of the family. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll catch up soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Massa Washington, where's Massa? Here Massa goes. I also want to thank you for availing yourself and helping to set this up. You are a family now of British Radio Africa and Ashford Garley Live. I know it's kind of hard to get you out of your comfort zone to come on, but listen, this is about our country, and I appreciate you for every time you do this for us. And so again, I want to thank you tonight. I thought it was a great discussion. We hope to come back and talk about this. This is an important topic to our country. And again, we have talked about so many other issues like mental health, what is happening with our Zogos population, our young people on drugs. Now we got sexual based violence. So we have too many pandemics to deal with. Corruption is a pandemic. Mental health is a pandemic. Sexual based violence is a pandemic. Lawlessness is a pandemic. We can go on with many of these topics. But again, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. Someone said they want you to please send in that report you have shown here tonight. The guy is weirdo. Weirdo, you got to pay for it. Masakin just put it in the mail and send it to you. So contact me. We'll tell you how we'll get it to you, but you got to pay for it because you know that you got to print it, you got to mail it and order that. All right.
So he wants the TRC gender report, women's report.
Yeah, that's what he wants. He wants copies of it. So
I mean, if he pay for the copies, I will, hold on. If he pays for the copy, I will send it to him because it's let me see how many pages. It's 102 pages.
So 102 pages. Do the math, my man. So we'll talk about it. All right. Okay. So it's 102 pages. Masa, thank you so much. I appreciate you. We'll talk after everything. All right. Good night.
No problem, Eruptible.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for being there tonight on the Ashford Garley Live show here on British Radio Africa. We had a very wonderful discussion on gender-based violence. It is a national pandemic. It's an issue that is trending in Liberia. It's everywhere in the country. And not just Liberia, but it's also on the continent of Africa in third world countries where this is of major concern. We also have it here in the U.S., a lot, and it's oftentimes too in our own communities, the Liberian community, the African community, the African American community, even in the Caucasian community. It's just one of those issues that continue to persist, and these ladies talked about ways that we can address them in Liberia. If we can address corruption, we'll be able to address putting fundings into places, if we can allow the law to take its course, when perpetrators are brought to book and held accountable, rather than utilize the victim and their resources to to feed the perpetrator, to transport the police officer. Listen, this is insulting, man. When you people do that kind of stuff in Liberia, it bothers me to the very core of my existence. If I'm in victimized and you're asking me to put a policeman, pay a policeman way to carry he and a prisoner, what type of country is this? Y'all tell me now, my people. How can we bring ourselves to this lower? When every day we're talking about budget $500 million. So the money we just paying salary to people, $15,000 to senator, $10,000 to legislator, 900 gallons of fuel. So that the only people that's supposed to enjoy, and y'all go back to the poll and vote these people into power when they don't give a crap about y'all and your existence. You tell me, when the things that's supposed to enhance your livelihood, electricity, pipe-borne water, telecommunication, good hospital, good schools, all these things that you are entitled to as the Liberian people, you leave them and you go to work and put these. Listen, I almost got out of my element, but you put these kind of people in power who don't give a crap about you, and all is about themselves. They compromise the laws every day. We have blockbusters laws, like Massa termed it, blockbuster laws, and yet we cannot implement those laws, those regulations, those procedures, those policies, those systems in place. The international community has done extremely well putting money into our country. Liberia is now a donor-funded country. From the day Ellen Johnson Shirley came to power to now, it's just a donor-funded country. We haven't been able to do anything internally. We haven't been able to industrialize our country. We haven't been able to do much with our country. We can't even generate our own income internally. We are depending on the diaspora for remittances to run the country. What type of place is this? And then when we talk about it, and you say, oh, blah, 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 blah. Well, we're not talking about President Weah. I keep saying this. President Weah, I got no beef for you. I got beef for you when you fail to take action. Because you came, you saw the problem, you say, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to take care of this country. I'm going to bring a renaissance. But President Weah, look at some of the people you got in government. Let's talk so now. Come on now. I know you, my brother. Not on a personal basis, but I know you. I know what you stood for. I know how much you fought for your country to keep it on the map in the days of the war. You kept Liberia on the map of soccer. At least we're still recognized in the community of nations by your actions on the soccer field. And then you come to power and then you continue to compromise the country. Whatever country you have here, you have not even done some reshuffling. You have not even revisited the books for 3 years, going 4 years now. The country is still in the same place. Mr. President, do something. Please. Gender, sexual-based violence is a very important issue. Let us not continue to play lip service to the process. I am trusting that you can do something about it. When you wake up tomorrow and you watch this broadcast, there was a lot of things talked about here tonight. And I'm sure that in some way you understand it. Take actions. The Liberian people put you in power to take actions on their behalf. They wanted you to fix the problem, to alleviate the problem, or minimize the problem. So take actions to address those problems. We can't continue to have rapists all over the country, not just for little girls, but they also for little boys. You go in public sector industries in the country, boys are dressing with tight clothes, they are in competition because somebody's in there molesting them and encouraging them, come on now. We all know it. We need to clean our country up. How God gonna bless us when we continue to play lip service and pretend like we don't know what we're doing? So I just want to leave us tonight on this note. Thank you for being there, all of you, our viewers. Bridge Radio Africa will be back here on Friday. In fact, we have another important topic, and there's no way it will be on education on Friday. I'll see you all. Good night, and thanks for being there. I'll catch up with you. Thank you so much. Thank you, wonderful people. Good night.